Thank you. Firstly, let me thank NFQ team, Josh, Kunne, Rich, and everybody for giving me this opportunity. It's absolutely wonderful to be here. We have, over the last 1.5 years, I think, Infor and NFQ, we have built a very strong partnership which we have taken to the next level, right? I think a couple of people sitting in this room, we have been working together. We have made progress. Now, before I get into a formal introduction of mine, I think one of the introduction, the first very sentence, my good moderator said, it's almost afternoon. That means basically that reminded me, Varghese, you are standing in between the 25 people here and the lunch, right? So I'm standing in between. So I'll be conscious about that. The time, it's about 30 minutes to go. I think everybody's mind is on lunch, what's on the table. I'll try to be very, very crisp in terms of what I speak. Very briefly, I'm from Infor. I'll give you a very brief background, brief of Infor in the next slide. My name is Varghese. I'm based in Singapore. I headed the sales for a couple of countries within ASEAN. Got about 7 or 8 people across Singapore, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, and Sri Lanka. And of course, beyond the 7 people that we have, the sales people, we have got about 40 partners who are a kind of an extended family of Infor. So that's the capacity that we have purely from a selling point of view. But of course, we have got pre-sales and delivery people and all of them. In Vietnam, we do not have physical presence. Of course, we have got a couple of BDRs sitting and making calls. But of course, we have got the extended partners, including NFQ, plus a couple of them in Ho Chi Minh South, another 2 up in the north. So that's a a landscape. Let's see if it's going to move. It was working. Okay. Okay, so just to give you a brief in terms of some of you may not know Infor. Infor is basically a cloud software company which provides business operations software. Of course, we have got platforms, we have got ERPs, we have got supply chain solutions, we have got MES, we have got PLMs, we have got a lot of products. And we have been in the business for as an Infor brand, we have been around for 20 years. From a profile perspective, we are over 3 billion revenue globally. We have got about 50,000 customers globally. From a SaaS, over the last probably 3-4 years, we have pivoted just like any other software vendor on this planet. We have pivoted from on-premise to SaaS solutions. That's what exactly everybody is doing because that's the market expectations are, right, in terms of innovations and everything. So we have built about 1.2 billion kind of a run rate SaaS ACV, the ARR base, which we are growing over at 20% on a year-over-year basis. Now we have got, from a customer retention perspective, I think this is one thing which I will we proudly talk about. We have got very high stickiness, right? The customers who have been with us, and I'll talk about the sweet spot where we play. We do not compete with anybody and everybody out there in the market. I'll talk about that in the next slides as well. So stickiness in the market is very high, and that's about 97%. Now, we have got significant R&D investment going into our products and innovations on an annual basis. And the next slide will talk about why that 1.5 billion. Now, Infor today is part of the Coke Industries globally, and that's Coke Industries is probably the largest or the second largest privately owned a corporation on this planet. Coke has got a lot of companies there into a lot of manufacturing. Georgia Pacific is one of those glass manufacturing companies which has got a presence in Vietnam, up north in Hanoi as well. Molex, Guardian Glasses. So that's Coke owns Infor, and so that we are a privately owned company as well. Coke has got about 125 billion plus revenue, 120,000 people worldwide, across 70 countries. So this basically gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of investments into innovation, R&D, and we are not driven by the quarterly a stock market, market expectations in terms of profitability and all of those. It gives a lot of flexibility in terms of how we go to market, how we can operate. That's kind of a background. Globally, again, I just mentioned in the previous slide as well, 50,000 customers. We have got 15,000 customers on cloud, which we have moved them from on-premise to a cloud solution over the last probably 4 years. 3.3 billion revenue, partners probably 2,000 plus around the globe, releases. And Now, specifically within Southeast ASEAN, leaving aside sort of a Korea out within my portfolio, we've got about 1,000 plus sort of a customers, which is just about ERP and the supply chain solutions. Edge, basically what I'm talking about is supply chain, WMS, and some of those kind of things. 100 plus customers on the cloud. We have made major progress over the last 2 years in terms of moving some of our large customers from on-premise to cloud. Of course, I mentioned in my previous sort of a slide as well, we have got 45 plus partners to whom we go to market. So that's our profile within. Now, in terms of the focus, I just want to I mentioned earlier as well, now, unlike some of our other sort of a large ERP providers or cloud platform providers in the market, we are very focused. We do not get into any industry, anybody and everybody, kind of all solutions for all, everybody. That's not our focus. These are the sort of 6 or 7, probably I'll say 7 within Asia Pacific. These are the focus areas for us. That's a sweet spot. Aerospace and defense, automotive, industrial manufacturing, high-tech electronics. Healthcare is not a focus in this part of the world because of that's a focus only in the US. F&B is another major focus for us in this part of the world. Fashion and distribution as well. Now, just to give you a couple of instances, I think in this part of the world, industrial manufacturing is a focus. There are a lot of manufacturing, large manufacturing companies, semicons and manufacturing companies are customers. Automotives, several of them in this part of the world, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand as well, a lot of them are customers. F&B, across Southeast Asia, that's a big focus for us. Distribution, lot of 3PLs, DB Schenkers of the world, Jordays, some of them are in Indonesia. They're all using our supply chain management software to sort of manage the entire ecosystem of 3PL billing as well. So our focus is really sort of couple of 5 or 6 industries rather than sort of being for everybody in the market out there. So of course, our solutions are really customized and sort of for a lot of micro verticals underneath these 6 or 7 industries as well, just to give you a full perspective in terms of where we are. So there are, our entire go-to-market and sort of go-to-market is driven by the 4 pillars that we have, right? I talked about the industry specificity. If you look at the industry focus, that's one big pillar. We are not for all. We are for specific industries which we operate in. And there are a couple of, we have got different platforms, and we do not just go and sell simply because the pricing or sort of value. We do not go and cross-sell one solution which is made for, say, F&B. We do not go and sell that to sort of propose to a manufacturing sort of industry. We are very specific in terms of what solution we provide to which industry. Now, really the industry focuses are sort of our strength. Core strength, I would probably say. Innovation, every sort of software vendor on this planet will claim that because Gen AI and all those capabilities, everybody's building. But of course, we do have that. Agility, of course, everybody is today. Customer centricity. On the customer centricity, I'll just mention this. Unlike some of the other, I'll not take the names, but some of the other large global vendors, they just, their primary go-to-market is partners, right? They deliver, they sell it to the partners. The partner owns everything from then on in terms of the customer success, customer delivery capabilities and everything. But in our case, it's slightly different. Of course, we have got the go-to-market partner ecosystem as a go-to-market engine, but we own the customer success, right? Even if the partners are delivering completely 100% of the implementation, we own the customer success. We have the direct touch with the customers as well. So these are some of the real 4 pillars of our sort of how we deliver the outcomes to the customers. Now, how do we make this happen, right? In terms of the latest innovations, I talked about the 4 pillars. What are some of the things? I don't have too much of time, but I'm going to sort of very briefly give you an idea, very brief, few things in terms of how do we make all the sort of things happen. Of course, you saw in my previous slide, we have got about 50,000 customers around the globe. Of that, key 3,600, we asked them, hey, what exactly, from 7 industries, which I showed earlier as well, what are the key drivers that create value for your businesses, right? So that, it's coming from the horse's mouth in terms of what is your expectation in terms of value creation for you. So 74% of them said, this is the real sort of a survey. This is real survey that we did last year. 74% of them said use and adoption of advanced technologies. I don't think it surprises any one of us here. All of us probably will, any of our customers, even if NFQ goes and asks the customers, you will get the same answer. Probably if not 74, if could be 50, could be 100, right? So it's not surprising. But again, I'll tell you why that's important, right? So today, if at all, based on the, again, survey, right? 75% of the customers expect at least, 20% or more productivity increase gains over the next 2 to 3 years. I think that also not surprising today with all the pressure and the margins and the business fundamentals matrix. I think everybody is expecting significant gain, right, over the productivity, which will flow into the margins and growth and everything, right? So they said 75% of them expect 20% or more over the next 3 years. Now, the thing is, the reality that we find, again, based on the real survey, this is based on the McKinsey who did the survey, I'm quoting here. So as opposed to the 70% expectation of the 20% gain, there are only sort of 30% of the digital transformation projects to really sort of succeed, meets the expectation. So majority of the sort of transformation projects today, that's a reality. It's not my number that's coming from the McKinsey. They fail in some form or the other. Could be sort of how we set up the project, could be the value that we are sort of driving. Now, so that leads to, between these two, there's a huge value void, right? That's exactly what most of the vendors, we should be sort of tackling. In the next slide, probably I'll sort of walk you through very briefly in terms of where Infor tries to bridge that gap. What exactly the capabilities that we bring to the customers in terms of to build that value void that we see between these two. Now, the value creation, I don't think all of us, in this room will agree. Of course, the value is all about, end of the day, the bottom line, it's about sort of profit margins, right? Any value that any vendor needs to be, any organization that needs to be sort of creating, it needs to lead to profit margins, profitability increase over time in some form or shape. Of course, growth drivers in terms of your top line, it has to sort of contribute to your revenue top line growth as well. Of course, on the other hand, a lot of us, almost every industry players, if you look at it, customer experience, customer sort of experience is so critical today, without which the churn would be very high. So how do we drive that? So all these three put together, what do you need? What are the organizations looking for today in terms of value creation from the vendors who come and sort of present to a consultancy projects or digital transformation? It's all about sort of, they need process, right? The process mining, process automation. How do you look at, somebody has to come in, what are the consulting firms, when some of the companies hire consulting firms, they come and look at re-engineer the entire process and say, okay, this is where we are, this needs to happen to gain this, right? So the process needs to be streamlined, right? Of course, data, right? Again, I'm not a technical guy, but I'm a business guy, I'm a finance guy, I'm a sales guy, but insights is so critical today for any businesses, not about running at the top level, CFO, CIO level, but even at the shop floor, the insights are so critical to sort of manage your functions, whether be it a supply chain, product movement, or the machine sort of a functionality, warehouses, the supply chain or whatever. The insights are so critical, which will add towards your profitability improvement, revenue, and the value creation in a sort of so automation, which is a buzzword today anyway. So how do you automate some of the processes, mundane processes? Where do we have opportunities using all the latest technologies to drive automation, which will lead to your sort of a revenue and profitability margin? Couple of things which all of us, very few examples. So federal sort of authorities say there are about 78,600 plus full-time registered nurses shortage by 2025. That's a US one. But of course, we are in the healthcare, but I'm talking about that as well. Now, how can a vendor software solution or a platform can support that? Automakers today, if you look at it, I think everybody is moving into a customized. If you go in and sort of buy Tesla today, go to the online, you need to sort of customize, right? Porsche or whichever car that you buy today, that's car makers are getting it. I think even the motorbikes are getting in. Sorry.
Can you show an example?
I'll come to that, right? So I'll talk through and I'll come to that, what exactly.
I think everyone fully agrees with what you're saying.
Yeah, I'll come to that. I'll come to the automation stuff. I have one slide. Of course, within the 15, 20 minutes, I'll sort of cover as much as possible. But of course, we can take the conversation offline as well, right? So, and how do we support? Again, back to the point, previous slide. insights, right? The process automation, dairy sort of recalls. I mean, how do we help those F&B sort of companies as well, right? So I'll give you a couple of, I mean, again, our focus starts from by industries, right? Industry is building the process from start to end so that we have got a huge data lake in terms of what are the processes within each of these industries to help each of the industries build. Now, in terms of the innovations, Infor basically, I mean, just to give you an example, with all the new technologies, we released more than 400 plus innovations just in October. This all in the SaaS solution. I'll give you a glimpse of some of those sort of innovations in the next slide as well. So it's on an ongoing basis, significant investment going into all the sort of automation, process re-engineering, the process mining and stuff. Just to take a sort of F&B company, a dairy or ice cream sort of a manufacturer as an example. So if you look at the value mapping, right? So if you look at any of those F&B, say for example, ice cream company, there are a load of functions. You can map them by value areas that a vendor, a platform, they're looking for sort of a value creation now. Could be sort of customer, how do we improve the customer sort of acquisition? Some of them could be green, some of them could be some of them could be sort of orange, yellow, red, improve inventory, in sort of improving the logistics. Now, if you look at it as one example, improving yield in a, say, ice cream manufacturing company, right? So how can they sort of improve the yield? So improving yield in a F&B or ice cream or food companies, basically, you've got certain amount of raw material for a certain, say, quantity of output. How do you increase the yield? Basically, sort of, you need to sort of look at how do you adjust the recipe production, track products, optimize sort of cuts based on the current market, and so on and so forth. So the platform that they use need to sort of provide that visibility, provide that sort of a tool for them to sort of manage that and improve the productivity. If you look at, I'll give you a simple one example. If you look at, some of you might be aware, Amethyst in sort of, it's one of the largest sort of a dairy producer. They use our F&B cloud suite solution, and this is the real numbers. I mean, even by increasing 1% yield improvement, that's about a $500K kind of a dollar improvement in absolute dollars for them, right? So then, of course, you can look at the deviations in the product, because which will sort of, once they get the visibility, they can sort of work backwards to the previous point, which I talked about, dairy recall, right? So all those kind of things. So that's one example in terms of how some of these large, in this case, the F&B manufacturer, using a cloud platform, which is sort of a highly advanced, to build type yield for their products. Similarly, I mean, again, this is nothing new. So basically, we've got a cloud platform sitting in there, which has got built-in sort of AI, APIs, artificial intelligence, Gen AI as well. I'll talk about one of those examples the next. So the entire sort of ecosystem sitting on AWS, which is helping to sort of create the value for each of our customers that we sort of support. Now, going back to one simple example on the process automation, given the sort of, I'm going to talk about just one. Now, I've taken a simple process of manual invoice creation, right, within ERP. It's a typical sort of a invoice processing kind of a flow. The company receives a physical invoice, then sort the invoices, capture information, match invoices, the entire flow. There'll be, if it's by manual, there are people sitting in there managing all of them. Just imagine the impact if the system itself, the platform that you use, is able to automate some of them and say, okay, cut down in between, almost has 6 or 7 the blocks in between, which can be automated. This is exactly what is happening in our sort of ERP. This is a real world example of how we are putting the automation into process and helping the customers benefit out of it. So basically, extracting input, validate, match invoices, all of them are manual process has been taken out. It's just done by the system by itself. You set the parameters. You've got the Gen AI capabilities, which does that. Now, so from what we have delivered from an automation perspective within our ERP system today, the platforms, there are lot of them we have provided. We have already sort of delivered in our sort of latest releases. We have got invoice processing example, which I talked about, proof of delivery, which is very typical in any sort of a supply chain. A lot of those, if you see, a lot of them we have delivered through our automation process within our ERP system today. Most of those are in there. There are a lot of them upcoming as well by industry. Again, you will see by industry what's delivered, what's upcoming by industry. We don't sort of a broad brush across all those process distribution industry. If you look at services, there are a lot of them upcoming as well. So there are a lot of that's one example in terms of how we have automated some of the processes within our platform. Process mining, that's another one which is coming big time, because process mining is basically, if you look at, what does, when you when you have an ERP sort of a platform, now our platforms comes with a lot of benchmarks which have derived from the 50,000 customers globally, including the one which is Amethyst. So the process mining, the data, the process, the platform mines it and gives out the results, and it does a benchmark as well. Hey, how you're doing versus some of the best benchmarks, best customers around the globe. We don't give the names, but again, there is a benchmark for everybody to look at. Back to the example of the dairy product, the yield that I was talking about. Hey, Amethyst, if it's looking at yield as this, what's the benchmark some of the customers are doing. So there is a lot of predictive analytics which are built into that in terms of whatever the production, the planning, all those kind of things which are available within our sort of a platform as well, which is helping a lot of customers. Now, these are some of the examples, the real-time numbers in terms of how some of the large brands around the world in different industries are driving outcomes or benefiting out of our advanced cloud solutions globally. Now, I'm not going to go through Zelandia, Caltire, Confluence Health in the US, how they're making their supply chain faster by using the AI solution built into our sort of AI features built into our cloud suite as well. So some examples in terms of how some of the customers, large customers, are driving benefit out of that. Now, just to give you a glimpse of some of the things that we have delivered on these Gen AI innovations within our platforms. A lot of them you will see surveys, a lot of them you will see project executive summary, assistant text authoring, all those kind of things that are delivered. There are a lot of them which are under pipe, which all of them will be delivered. I think our plan is basically between October last year and by April this year. I think all of them will be delivered, and it will be full-fledged. All the upcoming features that I'm talking about, they're shown there. It's all will be in our sort of a solution by April. That's basically the roadmap. Sorry.
And so, other than Google CR and, the management, where can we see biggest value for your clients?
I think
in those AI related functionalities that it just mentioned.
I think it's a process automation, especially in the manufacturing, the machines, how they hand off the process from one machine to another one. And the recipe is another one example, right? The food and beverages, I'll give you a simple example. One example that I can give you, we delivered our food and beverage cloud suite solution to one of the largest, the food paste manufacturing in Malaysia, right? They were on that's one of the largest in the Southeast Asia. I'll not take the name. That's about $1 million annual contract. They were looking at, of course, they're concerned about once we put the recipe on once we put the recipe on this platform on the cloud, will it be visible? Is it secure, right? Now, what they're looking for is basically they want to hold the patented recipe, and the process in terms of the farm where they procure some of the fish and all those kind of things to the paste manufacturing and the. Okay. So I think there are different industries benefiting out of the process engineering. The process mining is new, actually. We just came out just about, I think, a couple of months ago. I think the process automation is one of the largest area where the customers are benefiting.
That's what any ERP does, right? That's not specific to AI.
It is not. The difference is basically, I'm going to bring up the name today, right? So since you asked me that question, say for example, if you look at, it's wrong to assume that any ERP does it today. So if anybody takes offense, I'm sorry about it, SAP for that matter. SAP is a large player. We don't compete with them. Now, SAP is a one-size-fits-for-all ERP. They do not have industry-specific process mining. They do not have industry-specific specificity when they sell it to F&B versus a semicon industry. They do not have. What they do is basically, they've got one-size-fits-all. That's the case with most of the ERP vendors in the market today. It's basically, they bring the sort of ERP here, right, to the customer, and the partner or the SAP does customization to meet the requirements of, okay, semicon, I need to sort of the manufacturing sort of whatever process flow, or the F&B sort of from farm to the table kind of a process. It's a customization which costs arms and legs, right? Which most of the customers do not realize upfront. But in our case, it's different. That's where I call it. The industry specificity in our case is very different and very, very real. And our ERP it's not like one size fits all, right? Say, for example, we sell Cloud Suite F&B, which is made to meet all the specifications for an F&B company versus, and that doesn't fit into a manufacturing firm or doesn't fit into a, process, semicon or something. So it avoids the cost overlay in terms of the customization that is required. That's one. The second part is basically, it comes with a lot of intelligence which you have built into that system, into that application, based on the F&B experience we have within a Cloud Suite F&B industry. So it's about industry specificity. Just to give you a glimpse of one example, one simple example about Gen AI, how we sort of use that. Just look at it, one of the ERPs, we have got this. This is a page that one of the production engineers sees. He comes in the morning, this is what he sees. This is customizable, and he sees this. Just let's say, this is a conversational sort of an agent that we have. He will sort of click on, he will ask a couple of questions. What's the expected uptime for the machine, sort of number so-and-so. It gives you the answer. Maintenance is schedule. He asks next question, just see which orders are impacted by this production uptime. He gets the answer, production 1, 2, whatever. It's a conversation.
What's the source behind this?
The data.
Which one? Is it documentation or is it a database?
The database. Right? So it gives you basically, based on whatever that is sitting in your ERP, which is all sort of within your environment, it gives you answer. It's a conversational Gen AI sort of that is built into the ERP, which avoids, basically, you don't need to sort of go around asking people or sort of swift through n number of sort of files to sort of look at to get all these answers, right? You can ask questions. Again, this is one simple example of a sort of a workspace that a production engineer will see. It can be different. It can be in a finance guy will see a different space, different sort of workspace. He's got questions. So this is one example where how the Gen AI is built into the conversation agent is built into our sort of ERP. Readiness, again, this is generic. I would probably say one thing I'll say probably, again, we are Infor as compared to some of the other vendors. We are end-to-end. Again, unlike some of the other competitors where they sell it's real sell through the partners where the partners does everything else. Ours is basically, we start from the readiness of the customers in terms of showing them the value map, helping them identifying what are the areas they're looking for value creation, pain points, deployment, adoption, then value realization. Most of the other vendors in the ERP vendors, if you look at the larger ones, the value realization, it's not done directly by the vendors. It's basically the partners, right? So it's a sell-through model. In our case, it's slightly different. We own that value realization as well as a customer success.
So that example that you showed, right? An engineer asking by, what is it? Whatever question.
Yeah, whatever question.
What kind of adoption rate do you see in Infor? Because you roll this out, right? Before that, they needed to ask an SQL guy to write a query and get back work. They never did it. Right?
Yeah.
Do you have some kind of adoption measures or like What changed?
Look, I mean, what change? It's a value. It's a value which the customers are driving, right? So, of course, I mean, the cloud migration, if you look at most of this Gen AI sort of features that I just talked about, this has been rolled out over the last one year, right? So, most of those AI solution, the advanced sort of a cloud suite that we have sold or migrated the on-prem to sort of cloud, which we have done probably over the last 1 year. So, to be specific, in this part of the world, I'm not talking about globally, right? Most of the customers that we have taken them from on-prem to a cloud suite, which all these features are built in, they're in the process of moving, and value realization probably has not happened. So it's happening now. That's a fair, yeah. I mean, if I look at most of those typical ERP sort of implementation, I mean, if it's a larger one, say 500 to sort of 1,000 user kind of an implementation, will take easily about 1 year, 1.5 years. Then you've got a sort of a handoff period. So the value realization will take really about 2 years. So everybody who's looking at all the sort of a transition, they're looking at a long term. So to be specific, sorry.
And you're in sales. So is this a main buyer? Is this the main sales reason and set at the moment when you sell your products? Because you're saying it's an adoption trying out.
Correct.
So people don't really know.
Right.
Is this your most engaging product at the moment, or is this just something that's interesting but people buy for a different reason?
When you
talking about your experience,
right?
If AI is driving the sales already,
yeah. Answer is yes. There are two things which are There are three things from my perspective which I have experienced with the market, which is which is helping us, Infor, right? One is basically our industry specificity, which is a core strength, right? Our solution are not I talked about it. Our solutions are industry specific, which is unlike any other vendor, which is a selling point. That's one. Second is basically.
The thing is, you don't know if it really helps yet, right? You don't have the metrics yet. But still people already are buying because of that.
Correct. We do have the matrix. I shared some of the numbers in the previous slide, if at all I can share with you. I mean, of course, it's not the Asia-Pacific numbers. I mean, I talked about amateurs. I showed sort of a 6 customers, sort of what exactly they're driving. Those are real-time, what exactly they benefited. I'm not saying that we have not delivered. We have not measured. I shared with you as well. Yep. Okay, so that's possibly, I talked about all of them. Yeah, so I mean, we have the data to show this. I shared a couple of examples earlier, and we have the data, what we are delivering compared to what the customer expectations are. And these are based on the data, and that's what we are, yep, that's about it. So I thought it was helpful. Happy to have a conversation if you're sort of interested to know more about Infor, our products, whatever. Happy to do that.
Great.
Yep. Fully.